there's a very unique halacha now that allows us, for example, in the summer season when Shabbat begins very, very late, how many of us wait till 8:15 sometimes in the summer to do Kiddush? Not really so many people. When the Shabbat begins late, very often we begin Shabbat early. The question is, are we allowed to now come and do Kiddush? Can we begin Shabbat, make Kiddush, begin our Friday night meal before the sun sets, before Shabbat theoretically begins? So the halacha explains that as long as you're what we call from Plaga Mincha and on, which is let's say approximately an hour and 15 minutes or so before sunset, at that point and on, you're allowed to make Kiddush of Friday night and begin your Shabbat meal as if Shabbat began. Why? Because there's a concept of halacha where we are mosif michol ala kodesh, that we want to add on both ends, from before Shabbat and after Shabbat. We want to add some time to expand Shabbat, to make Shabbat a little longer. So therefore, because we're allowed to begin Shabbat earlier, we are also allowed to make Kiddush earlier, assuming it's within that Plaga Mincha, that hour and 15 or so minutes before sunset, and begin our meal earlier. This is very applicable in the summer season when in New York sunset can become later sometimes. We don't necessarily want to wait till after 8:15, 8:30 to start our meal. You can start it at 7:30, whenever it is, so long that you're within after Plaga Mincha. Now the next important, interesting halacha is, now we're already at the table, we're sitting. If everyone who's ever been to Shabbat meal knows that we cover the bread under and above. Why is the reason for that? What's the point? Why do we cover? So there's a few reasons brought down in halacha. The first reason is to commemorate how Hashem gave us the man when we were in the desert. What was the man? The man was, to keep it short, a miracle where Hashem sustained the Jewish people in the desert for 40 years. Every morning, he would drop down these types of seeds that they would eat, and it would sustain them. They would keep them full, keep them healthy. So while they were traveling in the desert, there was no need for meats or any other types of food, because Hashem miraculously sustained them through food that fell from the sky. Now, on Shabbat, Hashem wouldn't give them man. He wouldn't bring down man. Why? Because Shabbat, there's no, quote unquote, you don't go to work. So don't go out to the field looking for man. He's not going to give it. Instead, Hashem gave us a double portion on Friday, one for Friday and one for Shabbat. And to commemorate that, how that was given, the double portion, with dew protecting under it and dew protecting above it, we have that same concept when it comes to making hamotzi on Shabbat, where we cover the breads with something under, usually the challah board or the tablecloth or something that's underneath, and we also cover the chalot, to cover the bread on top, to mimic that same way that Hashem gave us the man in the desert, covered by dew on top, dew on the bottom, to protect the food in the middle. That's one reason. The second reason is, generally we have a concept where anytime we have bread takes precedence when we make a beracha. If I have bread, if I have grapes, whatever you may have, we give precedence to making hamotzi first, because hamotzi covers the rest of the berachot. We don't want to make extra berachot for no reason. So how can we do now Kiddush before hamotzi? If anything, we have to do hamotzi first. Kiddush is secondary to that. So the reason is, we can't eat yet until we say Kiddush, so we have to do Kiddush first. So what do we, to get around the issue of having bread in front of us and not making the bracha on it, they said that we cover the bread, so quote unquote, not to embarrass the bread. Obviously, we're not children, there's no feelings for bread, but the lesson is much deeper than embarrassing an inanimate object. The idea is, we have to be ultra careful and extra diligent when it comes to people's feelings and how they might be offended or not, where even though you intend to do the right thing, we have to make sure it doesn't come off, God forbid, inappropriately, that can offend them. And that's the idea behind covering the challah as well. We don't want to get embarrassed that it sees we're making the bracha on wine first and not making the bracha on challah. Have a wonderful day, and mazal tov to our families again.